Jeff Stearns, connected through cars. If they're bigwigs, we'll have them on the show. And yes, we'll talk about cars and everything else. Here he is now, Jeff Stearns.
Jeff Stearns, connected through cars with my good friend Lou Gigliotti. And Lou has such an interesting story. We met through an interesting chain of events. Now, Lou's background is a 50-year, 5-decade racer. And Lou, is it primarily SCCA?
Pretty much. I mean, I ran Super V's in the beginning, SCCA stuff, and then I went on to the World Challenge Series and the Corvette. I mean, I'll forget. I guarantee I'll forget. But Corvette Challenge in the middle there. But in the end, we tried to do the American Le Mans Series, and we did a couple races there. But it was just politically it wasn't very good because GM didn't want another Corvette racing against their factory cars. So we went back to World Challenge in an Aston Martin. So at 65 years old, I won the Road America World Challenge race. And they said, here's my joke. They said, Lou, at your age, how do you do it? I said, I can do anything sitting down.
That's right. It wasn't a foot race. So it wasn't like how they used to start Le Mans.
Yeah, we're not going to do a pole vault. We're just sitting in the car and nothing changes. So I've had a blast. It's been an amazing career.
So what got us together is you're in the middle of developing, or what stage are you in with G2 Motorsports Park?
Well, next Monday, they're going to put asphalt down. We'll have 3.1-mile racetrack that's going to be paved. It's 40 feet wide. It was designed by a couple of Formula One track designers, Herman Tilke from Germany and Bob Bernard from Spain. And it's going to be a motorsports country club, but it's built to Formula One specs. It really is unique. And again, I didn't invent the idea of putting condos and garages on the racetrack, but when I built my racetrack, I didn't want just a performance track. I wanted a real first-class racetrack.
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. Because as you know, I've had other guests with their car, toy, garage, racetrack, whatever. But let's go back a little bit, because you've had a little bit of an interesting string of, let's call it good fortune from a real estate standpoint, that got you to the position of doing this. And I think it surprised you a little too, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So fill us in.
Well, in the beginning, okay, I started doing concrete construction, of all things, down here. I have my MBA from American University, and I was a high school math teacher only so I could have summers off to race. But I moved to Texas. I got a job with Volvo first, and then I moved to Texas. And it was just barely growing. I actually went broke in the mid-'80s, and I refused to file bankruptcy, and I rolled my toolbox out and started a little European car repair place. And every time I build a new building for my company, somebody would want to buy it. And I would tell my wife, everything's for sale except my wife and kids. And and I would pretty much just, whatever number I spent to build it, I would double it, and almost every single time they would buy it. And I don't know why. So I was able to double my money more than once. And I built my company was a Corvette specialty company, because we were racing Corvettes. And every time I'd race Corvettes, we'd have to come up with a new spindle or a new tie rod, a new sway bar, whatever. Anything we built for the race car, people started wanting it for their street cars, for their track cars. So we ended up making headers. BORLA originally started making headers for us, and they told me that I had to sell 500 sets or they were going to take over the design. And so I said, go ahead, I'll take it. I'm going to mortgage my house, whatever it takes. I agree, I'll buy 500 sets. And they could only produce 50 sets a month. So I started putting it on the Corvette form, and I was 50 sets back ordered before they got the first one to me. And so we sold 600 sets that year. And we were making them in-house. It took me 18 months to build 70 sets. And they were building me 50 sets a month, and we lowered the price, cut it in half, and just sold thousands of them. I mean, and so it was a really good design because it was from our race car. So that was like the beginning of LG Motorsports. LG Motorsports, it's a company I sold. I built 2 buildings when I came out here, and I bought 75 acres. And I built LG Motorsports up to be a really, really good company, and I sold it.
Now, where is here, Lou?
Here is just 20 miles north of Dallas, 20, maybe 25 miles north of Dallas. Toyota's got their brand new headquarters here. We're 28 miles from Toyota's brand new headquarters. We are really close to the Metroplex, which is unusual. And I had to do a little fighting with the city councils and get it moved into the county and out of the city. And that's how we were able to get all of our permits. But it was a battle all by itself.
Well, I want to get into that, but I want to actually back up on your real estate fortune, and I want to still ask you some things about these headers. So in the real estate, when you said you took what you had in the building or the whole property, et cetera, and double it, and you'd get it and you didn't know why, do you think that leaned more towards the location becoming popular, or because of the way you were setting up and designing these buildings and someone else wanted to follow the way you had it? Like, what was that?
I think it was location. We built one building in a little town called Wiley, and it was 4 miles north of a brand new highway that was going in, and I figured at some point that they're going to connect, and they sure did. Went from a 2-lane asphalt road to a 6-lane, really beautiful road in front, and so I built it for $265,000, and I sold it for $1,065,000. So I went looking for land, and I found 5 acres that was owned by Lowe's Lumber, and it was on the market for, I don't know, 5-6 years, and they finally took the sign down. And I had my realtor call him and offer him $500,000 because that's what I had left over from the other building. And they said, no, we'll never take 500, or we'll never take 400. I offered them 400, but we will take 500. So I bought that. I built the building. I had $2.3 million in a 45,000 square foot concrete tilt wall building, a beautiful building. But I used half of it for my company, and the other half I rented out. It paid my whole mortgage. And for whatever reason, somebody wanted that building in that spot, and so I doubled the number, and I made about $2 million, and that's when I bought the land out here. I kept doing these 1031 exchanges, and so I bought 75 acres out here, and I built 2 buildings. So I went to a Corvette event at the Corvette Museum, and the guy that I raced with, Mitch Wright, was running the show. And I said, Mitch, how many acres do you have here for this whole racetrack? He said 150. Well, as soon as I got back, I put an offer on the 75 acres next door to us. And so all of a sudden, within 3 or 4 months, I had 150 acres. The second 150 cost me double. Well, that's part of my racetrack now. I ended up buying 33 more acres, which cost me triple, but I was able to accumulate 180 acres. And then I had no money to build the racetrack, so I started out by selling my company and my building, and that was a big score, $6.3 million. I sold the company. Now remember, I moved to Texas 38 years ago with no money, and I borrowed $1,200 from Beneficial Finance just to get here. And so Texas has been very good to me. I love Texas. So I sold that company and bought the rest of the land that I needed, and we started trying to raise the rest of the money. And the only thing we could come up with was an SBA loan. And so the SBA loan was it took 3 years to accomplish the SBA loan, but some of that was through the COVID thing. So everybody slowed down. I mean, there was no way to get a hold of people because they were government workers. They weren't working. But we eventually got it done, and we got it approved 18 months ago in April. But it took us until November to actually get the paperwork. Anyway, long story short, we started construction on this track. We got a $12 million loan. The land was paid for, but we got a $12 million loan to start construction, and that started January 26th. We got 2 of the best contractors in the entire Dallas, in the entire Texas, Oklahoma market. Mario Sinicola and Sons, they're doing the dirt and all the track preparation, and Austin Paving is doing the asphalt. And we have 2 layers of asphalt. The first layer is regular DOT highway asphalt. The second layer is Formula One. It's a super duper mix. So we're going to have a racetrack that's 40 feet wide, designed by Formula One designers, and it's going to feel unbelievable because it's going to have the right asphalt on it. So here I am. I told my wife in 2 years we'll have a racetrack or we'll be broken, and it looks like we're going to have a racetrack.
Beautiful. And I'm looking at the website. I'll make sure to put in the show notes the link to the website. And I mean, my goodness, from Formula One to Nürburgring, and then you've got a weekly drone video. I'm assuming that's for the progress of the project. Drawings of the track, unbelievable. So here's a question. Other guys that I've talked to in this space, they've made it more like a club and more, well, I don't want to say more safety-minded, but they certainly not like you can't pass another driver. So yours looks like more racing-centric, or am I misunderstanding?
Mine is going to be a real racetrack, but it's a motorsports country club. And the biggest problem with having a hot rod like, for example, having a hot rod like that, you can't drive it the way it was meant to drive on the street because, number one, there's usually flashing lights behind you. It's dangerous. You know, it's you can't drive fast, safe, and legal. On my track, you're going to be able to drive fast, safe, and legal. And we're going to have, just so we get to know all the police, we're going to have a tactical driving class out here. We're going to get some tactical driving instructors to teach the police how to spin somebody out. I know how to do that. I guarantee it. So, yeah, so it's going to be a motorsports country club, but it also is going to include these garage condos that you can buy, and it's your space. You own it. And you can buy a small, medium, or large. You can put your cars in there. We are doing it similar to what other guys have done. We've pre-sold. We have 30 coming in the first phase. And we've got 7 of those sold already. I've got some people that I'm talking to again. We'll probably have the 30 sold before we get all the guardrail up. It's going to be a real racetrack. It'll probably have a top speed of over 150 for most of the real good cars. It's got a bank turn in there. I spent a lot of time at Nürburgring in Germany. And so they have a bank turn, a carousel, and we made one turn. It's got 13% banking. It's going to be pretty interesting. The biggest issue was that the asphalt company was worried that they weren't going to be able to get their asphalt machine on that banking.
Okay, so that's interesting things you don't think about from behind the scenes. Like, okay, I mean, why couldn't you just make a bank any way you want? Well, I mean, I guess that's one reason is the cement mixer.
Yeah. These are asphalt, so the asphalt's going to be on an angle, and then they can't put the truck on an angle because all he has to do is raise his bucket and pour the asphalt into the machine. Well, he can't do that because it's falling down. It's going to miss it. So they have to do it another way, and I'm waiting to see how they do it. But they said they could do it. So, hey, they did Daytona and, all those NASCAR tracks. They can do mine.
They'll bring your asphalt with an Osprey chopper or something.
Yeah. Well, the asphalt starts next Monday. So this is today is the 12th. It'll be the 19th. Asphalt will hit the ground.
Well, congratulations on that. Now, your headers. So you're telling us the story of your headers. You're dealing with BORLA, and BORLA says to you, listen, I mean, we can't do these headers free unless you give us a 500 unit order. You say, terrific, I'll take it. The most they could produce, their capacity's 50 units a month. You say, terrific. You start talking about it on forums, and you're already back ordered 50 units before it starts. But so I'm curious. I guess the issue is somewhere, or the issues, and you can tell me if I'm missing it, are somewhere between sound, back pressure, and free flowing.
Yes, the headers we built were made for racing, so there was no compromise. We had a merge collector, which was a very expensive way to build a collector, but it was probably worth 15 or 20 horsepower just for that collector. And so we made these headers for Corvette, and they were right off of our race car. And so we started making them one at a time. And when BORLA gave me a call, the whole idea was that I had to buy 500 sets of headers. And now our headers went from the engine all the way back to the muffler. So it was a complete X-pipe, everything, all the way back to the muffler. And later on, we built the muffler too. But so we built all this stuff. I sent it out to Borla. They signed a non-compete and a non-disclosure. But they did tell me that if you don't sell 500, I said, I'll sell 500 no matter what. I'm putting my house up for mortgage if I have to. And it's funny, too, because every single credit card offer that came in the mail, I told my wife to sign it and send it in. We had so many credit cards because we thought we'd have to use them for these headers. But we were constantly on back order. We never had to take a penny out of pocket. And we were able to, I was constantly on the phone to Borla. When are you going to ship? I've got 50 on back order. When are you going to ship? And they'd ship 50, and I'd get another 50 on back order. So that year we sold 600 instead of 500. The next year we sold 1,000, and we just kept selling 1,000 a year or 1,500 a year. And we used to sell them for $39.95 because we were hand making them. Borla came in and they said that they would make them for $600. And so we lowered the price to $19.95, which made them really desirable. And yeah, Borla ended up going up on their price, but we ended up making a lot of money. And so we just kept investing that money into new parts, drop spindles, drag spindles, brake kits, suspension parts, spherical bearings in the suspension. Everything that we built for the race car, we built for the street car. But those headers, those were our gold mine. Those were the injection that we needed to turn us into a big company. So it was awesome. Borla made some mufflers for us also, and we ended up using 2 or 3 different manufacturers eventually. But our focus was we call them Pro Long Tube headers. And that name, somebody on the internet said, LG Motorsports, Gigliotti is making production long tubes. They're going to be made by Borla, so they're a production long tube. And they got tired of saying production, so they started calling them Pro Long Tubes. And so that's how it got the name, the Pro Long Tube headers, production long tube headers. So, and we kept that name, and it was a great hit. But that was one of the good things that, built us up into a big company.
Now, what does a collector do?
It collects the exhaust from 4 pipes, and the 4 pipes, depending on the firing order, it'll be like 1 3 4 2 1 3 4 2 1 3 4 2, and the merge collector next down, and then it would expand out, so it'd give you like a velocity change, and then it would create a vacuum. And so one exhaust would pull the exhaust out of another exhaust and another exhaust. And so each exhaust would pull the next exhaust out. So the merge collector was made by race teams. It was made by a bunch of different really good race teams. And we used it on our race car, and then we just mass produced it. So eventually we got an investment casting made so we could cast the collector, which used to cost us $500 for each side, and by doing a casting it cost us $50 for the pair. But it was still 304 stainless. We always went with 304 stainless. So, but I don't own that company anymore, and God bless America. It was just one more thing that I was able to sell besides my wife and kids.
That's right, because they're not for sale. So everything but. So at G2 Motorsports, will your members be able to race, or will it just be for their own lap times, track times, top speed, etc.?
It'll be for their own lap times, track times, but we'll have in-house races. So Radical Race Cars is going to set up a shop here, and they'll sell some Radical race cars, and we'll get the people that own Radicals, and we'll offer them the opportunity they can race each other. We'll have some in-house races. If I had my way, I would get a Ferrari Challenge race hooked up for here, or a Porsche Cup race, something that's manufacturer related, that we can have a race here with that. Plus, we're talking to 2 different manufacturers. If we can get a manufacturer that's willing to give us 15 or 20 cars, we can have a race series based around those cars.
Is insurance difficult, Lou? I'm always curious with these motorsports parks.
Because we're not going to hold real competitive racing. We're not going to allow Indy cars here, or Trans Am, or World Challenge. We're not going to have races like that. So as long as we're not doing full competitive racing, it turns into a lot less. And I believe that's why it's designated a performance track, not a racetrack.
This has been Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars.